All right, let's dive into the hidden world right beneath our feet. Seriously, it's a world that completely challenges everything we thought we knew about forests. It's an incredible story of communication, of cooperation, and, believe it or not, an economy way more sophisticated than many we've designed ourselves.
You know, for centuries, the picture we've had of a forest has been a battlefield. We imagined this constant, silent struggle, where every tree was on its own, fighting for sunlight, water, and a little bit of space. But what if that's not the real story? What if the forest is actually a deeply interconnected and cooperative community?
So, what's really going on down there? Well, we're about to look at the hard science, the actual proof, and it reveals a world that is far stranger and way more wonderful than any work of fiction.
Okay, so this whole story starts with something that's pretty much invisible, a partnership between fungi and plants that goes back an astonishing 400 million years. This is not some new thing. This is the ancient foundation of pretty much all life on land.
They're called mycorrhizal networks, but really you can just think of them as a biological internet, a kind of wood wide web. These tiny little fungal threads connect the roots of all the different trees, creating this massive shared highway for resources and information. And the density of this network is it's staggering. Get this, you can find up to 100 meters of these fungal threads packed into a single gram of soil. That's like cramming the length of a football field into a space the size of a sugar cube. This network is literally everywhere. The scale isn't just dense, it's mind-bogglingly vast. There's a single fungal organism in Oregon that covers almost 2,400 acres. It's thought to be thousands of years old and weighs as much as 35,000 tons. We are talking about one of the largest and oldest living things on our entire planet.
And you might be thinking, okay, that's a cool, rare thing, but it's not. This isn't the exception, it's the rule. Somewhere between 70 and 90% of all plant life on Earth is part of these networks. It's basically the fundamental operating system for life on this planet.
So how do we know this isn't all just a beautiful metaphor? How could we be so sure trees are actually sharing? Well, it's because back in 1997, a scientist named Suzanne Simard had this brilliant idea. What if we inject trees with radioactive tracers, basically trackable food, and then just watch where it goes? The experiment itself was genius in its simplicity. First, she injected a birch tree with one type of radioactive carbon and a nearby Douglas fir with another. Then, she just waited to see what would happen. And the discovery was an absolute bombshell. The carbon was flowing between the two different species. In the summer, the leafy birch tree was sending its extra sugars over to the shaded fir. This is something that all the old theories about competition said should never, ever happen. And this just perfectly illustrates the huge shift in thinking her work caused. I mean, she went into the forest looking for competition, and what she found was collaboration. And this wasn't some fluke, it was real, peer-reviewed, repeatable proof that trees were sending resources to those who needed them. And the network does so much more than just share food. You have these huge central mother trees that act like hubs, nurturing the seedlings all around them. We've seen communities of trees keep ancient, leafless stumps alive for decades, feeding them entirely through the network. And maybe the most incredible part, it's a warning system. Trees under attack by bugs can send out chemical signals through the network, telling their neighbors to power up their defenses. Douglas firs can literally warn ponderosa pines that trouble is on the way. This behavior is so complex, so patterned, that the best way we have to describe it actually comes from a totally surprising place: economics. The forest is running its own highly sophisticated economy. What Simard's experiment really showed was a true marketplace of reciprocal trade. So in the summer, the leafy birch helps out the shaded evergreen fir. But then in the fall, when the birch loses its leaves, the evergreen fir pays it back, sending carbon in the other direction. It's this beautiful system of mutual support that ebbs and flows with the seasons. And here's what's so fascinating. The forest manages to maintain what economists call public goods, things like stable soil and water retention that help everyone, but with no central authority. Our economic theories say this should be impossible, that you need a government or contracts to stop freeloaders from ruining everything for everybody. Well, the forest, it seems, never got that memo. So all of this forces us to face a pretty profound and maybe even a little uncomfortable truth about the nature of cooperation and self-interest itself. Now look, some scientists would argue this isn't altruism, it's just mutual exploitation. Every tree is just acting in its own self-interest to keep the fungal network healthy because it depends on it. But even if that's true, the lesson is incredibly powerful. When you're truly interconnected, the health of your community becomes inseparable from your own health. Helping your neighbor is, in a very real way, helping yourself.
And this isn't just some abstract theory. This understanding has huge practical implications. It's already changing how we manage our world. Foresters are starting to leave those mother trees standing to help regenerate forests faster. And in agriculture, adding these beneficial fungi to crops has been shown to boost yields by an average of 16 to 23%, often cutting down on the need for artificial fertilizers. So all this research, from the biology to the economics, it leads us to a final and frankly pretty mind-bending set of questions. Questions about information, memory, and maybe even the nature of intelligence itself.
Just think about our own brains for a second. We have about 86 billion neurons. Not a single one of those cells is conscious. There's no little CEO neuron sitting in a corner office calling the shots. And yet, out of all those massively complex interactions, consciousness just emerges.
Now think about the forest again. It has trillions of these fungal connections. This network processes information. It moves resources based on need. It responds to threats, and it even holds memories. That ancient stump being kept alive for decades is a living record. It's doing everything that we associate with intelligence.
And that leads to the really big question. If a mind can emerge from a complex network of cells inside a skull, why are we so absolutely sure that one can't emerge from an even more complex network in the soil? Why have we decided that intelligence has to be wrapped in skin and has to operate at the speed of electricity?
Maybe we're just too fast, too impatient to even perceive a different kind of intelligence, one that operates on a completely different timescale. What if a forest is having thoughts that take entire seasons to complete? The Wood Wide Web doesn't just ask us to rethink what a forest is. It asks us to rethink our own place in this vast, thinking world all around us. What do you think?